And we're back here on Inside Black and Gold. My name is Jeff Nowak alongside Steve Geller, as always, and with guest Al Sacco, 49ers Webzone No Huddle podcast host, to break down what we can expect from the 49ers this week. How you doing, Al?
I'm doing great, guys. Thanks for having me.
So I got to watch that Monday night game. And one of the reasons I like Monday night games is because I don't have to worry about interference with the Saints game. I can just watch the game. And so it worked out that I got to watch that entire Monday night game with the 49ers just trouncing the Cardinals. And I have to say, I came away scared. That is a scary football team. And it's like, you look at the record, it's 6-4. That is not a 6-4 team. That is a very good football team. What has been your kind of impression from that team throughout this season, especially the last few weeks?
Well, it's been up until last week. It's kind of been what it's been for the last year and a half, and that's inconsistent. And when you look at what they have on this team, their inconsistency drives you crazy. Some of the losses this year to a bad Bears team, granted it was in bad weather, but still, to a bad Broncos team. The Falcons aren't very good. They lose that game, and the Chiefs, what are you going to do? But they've been really inconsistent, and they've had trouble putting it all together. The defense has been great all year, other than a game and a half or so when they were injured. But the offense, you have Debo and Aiyuk and Kittle, and you're like, why are they not scoring 25, 30 points a game? Well, they started to turn that around with the addition of McCaffrey, who's changed everything for them. And Jimmy Garoppolo is actually playing good football right now. But, before the McCaffrey thing, they were 3-3. They were averaging about 21 points a game, 340 yards a game, and 41% on third downs. And in the 4 games since they had McCaffrey, they're 3-1. They're averaging almost 29 a game, almost 400 yards, and 55% on third down. So McCaffrey has sort of changed that offense, and I think he's calmed Garoppolo down to the point where, I don't know how familiar you guys are with Garoppolo, but he's not forcing those balls over the middle anymore. He's throwing the ball away, and I think McCaffrey's been a calming presence for him. So he's taking those checkdowns. He's not panicking. He's not taking bad sacks. He's just kind of playing point guard. He's not making that long throw down the field, but with McCaffrey there, he's been able to play point guard, and everybody's been able to fall into their roles. And yeah, this past Monday against the Cardinals was the first time I said, okay, maybe they have it together, and we'll see moving forward. But for the first time all season, I legitimately think they're starting to get rolling. And with that roster, it's a little scary for the rest of the NFC.
Yeah, seeing that performance Monday night, I think took everyone back. It was like the lights were on, and the Niners came out blazing. A guy that I don't know if I guess he's a pretty big name throughout the NFL in George Kittle, but you would imagine that he'd be putting up, I guess, Travis Kelce kind of numbers. What's been limiting him? Is it more about Garoppolo's performance and not him? Like, I just imagine that he's always open kind of deal. How do you guard George Kittle?
Right. Hey, listen, again, the fan base has been screaming about this now for the last year and a half, where Kittle hasn't been getting the ball. And it's been really confusing. And with all those weapons, you're not going to get 100 yards every game. You're going to have a few games where whatever. But Kittle had been an afterthought for a while. And yeah, he's a good blocker, but he's still out there running a lot of routes. And he just, for whatever reason, wasn't getting targeted. That started to happen this last game. And you see when he gets the ball, he's explosive. People don't want to tackle him. He's a yak monster. So it was good to see him get involved again. And I hope it continues, because I don't have an answer for you why he hasn't been, because the guy's dynamic. When he just, the whole team gets fired up when he catches the ball and gets a long run. You could see it.
Sounds familiar.
The whole offense. What was that?
It sounds familiar. That's kind of like the Taysom Hill vibe over here with folks.
Oh yeah. It just gets the team going, right? So I would hope that he's going to be more involved. You look at somebody like Kelce, like, I don't buy the he's double teamed. Teams can get their guys open, and you like Kelce, Devontae Adams, Stephon Diggs, Tyreek Hill. Like, teams aren't paying attention to these guys. They still get tons of targets in the ball. So I'd like to see Kittle get the ball more. It's not going to be consistent week to week because you have Debo and Aiyuk and McCaffrey. And McCaffrey's been a target and touch monster since he came here. But Kittle's somebody that I think is going to have games like you saw against the Cardinals if they're really going to go far this year.
Well, you mentioned the yak yards too with him. I saw that list that came out too that had, like, basically it's Debo Samuel was number 1, he's number 2, and then number 5 was McCaffrey. You got a bunch of yak monsters.
Yeah. Hold on. I asked PJ Williams in the locker room today what makes George Kittle so difficult to cover. So let's hear that really quick. George Kittle, impossible to cover, but what have you learned from going against him, the last couple of years?
Man, he a great route runner, man. He's real physical, so you got to make sure you're really locked in on him and not getting swiped by, or he do a lot of misdirection and stuff. Like he run this way, cutting and stuff like that. So you just got to make sure you got good eyes on him and not getting out physical by him.
Yeah, and I think that's good insight because he's not. There are different types of tight ends in this league, right? And he is very much in that Travis Kelce, Zach Ertz, or probably previous version of Zach Ertz, where you have to constantly be thinking about where they are on the field. It's not just about like, oh, they're going to stay in line and eventually they're going to work their way out. And I mean, it's just constantly putting pressure on your defense up the seam. So yeah, I mean, I am curious to see how the Saints defense him because he's a guy they know pretty well. Like they've seen him in that offense multiple times. And I remember the face mask in that crazy game back in 2019, I think it was. And
yeah,
he's a guy who can wreck the game. And so it's just a matter of, I think it's a question of when, as opposed to if with him.
Yeah. And it's funny when you bring up that game. I was watching highlights of that today because the Niners and Saints have played some great ones, man. You go back to the 2011 playoff game and then the 2019 game. They haven't worked out too well for you guys, but they were amazing games. And that game, if you remember that Saints game in 2019, Kyle Shanahan was really creative in that game. Mm-hmm. You saw, I think it was Emmanuel Sanders maybe threw a pass in that game, and they're having Juszczyk pitch the ball and a lot of cool stuff that he did. And that's one of the frustrating things I think for 49ers fans is they haven't really been doing that stuff that much. Mm-hmm. So again, it was good to see last week just this offense kind of start clicking. But for me, if I'm the Saints, the sort of the guy who's been making the engine go, like I said, is McCaffrey. You're going to get Debo and Aiyuk and Kittle yet, but McCaffrey's been the calming presence for the team. He has 68 touches in those 4 games. He has 24 targets in the passing game, 394 total yards and 4 touchdowns when you include the touchdown pass he had against the Rams. So I think he's the guy you have to worry about. And what they do is, so they're going to use McCaffrey first quarter. He's going to get a lot of touches, and then they get Elijah Mitchell to kind of pound you after that. And that running game has really been going with the two of them. The Niners look scary right now.
Yeah, I think it was like Eli Mitchell only had 1 touch in the first half of that game. And it was like at halftime, they're talking about, oh, is he maybe hurt? Is he in the doghouse? And it's like, no, they're just holding him back so that in the second half he can like smash you over the head. And it's like it's wild that there's that many weapons on an offense that you can just be like, yeah, Eli, hang out for a little bit, and then when he ended up with like 60 rushing yards in that game, he got touches.
Yeah,
it's just there's so many ways that team could beat you. I was just fascinated watching this team operate, and for a guy who wants to get creative like Kyle Shanahan, he's just like a mad scientist with all of these pieces. I don't know. It's a team that must be fun to watch week in, week out.
Well, again, they're frustrating because this game was fun to watch, but it's not something that we've seen all year. But you mentioned the creativity of what he does. There was on the Debo touchdown. If you watch that play, the line, you have guys pulling like the ball's going to the right side. And there were 9 defenders on the right side. And then Debo comes around and gets the ball. And there's only 2 people, and there's like 6 Niners out there to block. So there's 2 Cardinals and 6 Niners, and he just streaks down to the end zone. And when he does those kind of things and you see that, you wonder, how can anybody stop this team? But then you have games like against the Broncos or the Chargers where they can't break 20 points, and you're saying to yourself, how in God's name can they not be scoring 30, 35 with the talent that they have? So again, let's hope for Niners fans that Monday night was a sign of things to come, but it has been a little frustrating. And I love that you guys kind of on the outside, because we had Cynthia Freeland on the show a couple of weeks ago, and she was talking about the creativity and everything that Kyle Shanahan can do. And Matt Hamilton was on recently in the same thing. And we had talked after, like, everybody nationally and people we talked to from other teams are like, there's so much creativity, there's so much talent. And we're talking week to week. Why can this team not break 20 points? Why is this not happening? So I feel like when you get a national game like that and they saw that, everybody's like, yeah, definitely. Like, the Niners are really, really scary. But then I'm thinking about a couple weeks ago when they couldn't break 19 on a bad Chargers defense. So I need to see consistency from them before I can really say, like, yeah, this offense is here. If it happens for the next few games, great, but we still have to see it.
Another thing impressive with San Francisco, man, the defense obviously, and first year with defensive coordinator DeMeco Ryans has really, I don't know, it looks like he's got the ear of the players and just a good eye for the scheme that he's presenting out there. Just seems to be clicking with everybody right now later in the season.
Yeah, so you got to give Kyle Shanahan credit in terms of being the CEO of the team as the head coach, that he's put great people around him. Mike McDaniel gets a head coaching job, Robert Saleh, and then DeMeco Ryans comes in last year, and I don't think he's going to be there next year. I think he's going to be a head coach somewhere. And you look at this defense, and yeah, there's tons of talent, but the adjustments he's been able to make, one without Javon Kinlaw and Eric Armstead, this is still the best rushing defense in the league without their two best interior guys. In the past 3 games, they haven't given up a point in the second half. So they've made the adjustments at halftime to really shut people down. And they have just, blue chip guys. Nick Bosa, to me, is a top 5 defensive player in the league. Fred Warner's a terrific player. Dre Greenlaw is really underrated. Travarius Ward has been a really calming presence in the secondary. And they lost Emmanuel Mosley, who to me is one of the most underrated corners in the league. And they're not quite as good as they were with him, but they're still really, really good. So DeMeco Ryans has done a phenomenal job, and there's tons of talent there. And when a quarterback can move, maybe you get a little worried. But if you're going against an Andy Dalton, I feel like the Saints should be a little bit nervous with that pass rush. So we'll see what happens. But the defense, to me, it's almost taken for granted at this point, because you're going to go in and you're really only going to give up 17 points. So that going into that and knowing that for the Niners, it's good. And that kind of football can carry you a long way. They can run the ball and they can play defense, and that can get you deep in January.
Gotcha. Yeah, and I do wonder how much of this season has been kind of like they went into it saying, okay, we're gonna ride it out with Trey Lance, and there all this kind of uncertainty around Jimmy Garoppolo, and it's like, did they get better? Like I don't. It's weird because I don't know if they would be as good as they are if Trey Lance was in there, but obviously he's a prospect and you want him to get better. It's just a really strange situation. Like, do you think Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be the quarterback of this team next year?
Well, I think I can't answer that yet because we have to see what happens through the rest of the season. If they get into the playoffs and he has a Joe Flacco type run in 2012 when Flacco had like 11 touchdowns and no understand, if he does something like that and they win the Super Bowl, how do you move on from him? Because Garoppolo is loved in the locker room. His teammates love him. But it's weird because the Niners went into this season, I feel like no team ever has done what they did, where they had a team ready to win the Super Bowl and they turn the reins over to a quarterback who is that green. And I don't mean, we've seen Russell Wilson and Patrick Mahomes and Ben Roethlisberger take over really good teams, but those are guys who had over 1,200 attempts in college. Trey Lance didn't play for 2 years and has had like 300 attempts in 2 years. So you're turning this team over to a project and hoping he's going to get better throughout the year to where you're there at the end. I can't think of a team that's done anything like that.
Well, not a team that went to the Super Bowl and then went back to the NFC Championship with the same quarterback.
Right. That is that good, right, and ready to do that. So, but I'll give Jimmy credit. He was the Niners tried to get rid of him a full offseason. They went after Stafford, they went after Watson, and then they make a trade for Lance. And then he said himself he wouldn't have wished 2021 on anybody because it was so awkward. And then they bring him back in the training camp, and they're like, hey, just go throw over on the side field. We don't even want to look at you. And then they're like, oh, well, we can't trade you, so do you want to just be the backup? And Jimmy, to his credit, he's taken shots from the fan base. He's taken shots from the media. He's taken shots from his own team. They treated him like garbage. He was classy, at least outwardly. God, I don't know what he felt internally, but he never said a bad word. He was not a cancer. He just did his job, and then he got another shot, and he's played probably better than he has ever with the Niners. So he deserves a lot of credit. And if you asked me 3 weeks ago, is there any chance he'd be back? I'd say there's zero chance. But if they make another deep run and if they get to a Super Bowl, I'm just going to say right now, I don't know. I'm going from there's no chance to right now, I don't know, but we have to see what happens. But the Niners gave up a lot for Lance, man. So
I'd imagine that'd be pretty hard. I mean, the market too, even though for, you talk about a quarterback then with his credentials on the open market, who knows what that would even fetch nowadays.
Well, yeah, you look at how bad the quarterback play has been awful this year. You think the Jets would love him?
NFL, right?
Saints, right? I mean, you guys got to be going crazy with your QB play. So you put him on a good team. He's not Patrick Mahomes. He's not Josh Allen. But if you put him on an offense with playmakers around him, he can play point guard. And right now in the NFL, I think a lot of teams would take that.
Right. Every league average quarterback play isn't exciting until you don't have a league average quarterback.
100%.
Right.
100%. Yeah, you look at the Jets, right? The Jets are a really good team. I think the Jets have a really good team, and their quarterback was atrocious. It's all around the league. There's really bad quarterback play, and that class of 2021 that everybody thought was going to be great is looking a little suspect now.
Looking
Fields
like the class of 2015.
Right, it's scary. I mean, Lance is TBD. We don't know. Fields looks like he's at least an exciting player with the running, but Wilson's terrible. Mac Jones has looked terrible. Trevor Lawrence has been a huge disappointment. So yeah, it's tough to get a good QB, and Jimmy's at least a decent veteran that right now I'd say, I don't know, top 12 maybe, the way he's been playing, in that range, 12-ish. And I think a lot of teams would take that right now.
He's definitely top 32.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And in the offseason, you wouldn't think so, right? Because nobody wanted him. But no
one who's bidding on him thinks so in the offseason. And then all of a sudden, the Jets are starting a player that sounds like they got out of like a random quarterback name generator.
Right. Sam Ehlinger has taken snaps. There's just a lot of bad QB play this year.
Right.
And, Jacoby Brissett, the Browns were committed to him as the backup, right? He's, we've seen that movie. Maybe Jimmy would have done a lot better with that team until Watson came back. So there's just a lot of different teams. Carson Wentz, I'm sure Heineke's doing well now.
Lose his job again to the backup.
Yeah, again, right? I mean, he's going to be a backup for the rest of his career now. So there's just so many bad QBs out there right now. But it's been a wild year, man. Aaron Rodgers stinks. It's just such a weird year
team for sure.
It's just like now he's got a broken thumb, I guess. But if you told me this year was going to happen, Stafford was terrible before he got hurt. Brady looks human. I would have never believed it if you told me at the beginning of the season the way it's planned out.
But now he's on a tear. He's the divorced man and free now.
Yep. Now he's a different dude.
So I don't even have to worry about Thanksgiving with the kids. I'm just on film study.
Yeah. His Twitter bio used to say
he's never going to retire now.
No, ever.
No.
His Twitter bio used to say family and football. Now it just says football.
Yeah, that's it.
Ouch.
That's it. And guys like that are wired different, right? Like your Jordan, they're crazy. They're borderline probably crazy, which it's made them successful good for them. But
I mean, if Drew Brees didn't listen to Brittany Breeze, he would probably still be playing football. No, seriously. Like if you left it up to him and you just didn't give him any pressure from family to retire, that guy would still be playing football right now. I think he made the right call.
Yeah, he was kind of done, wasn't he? He wasn't really that last year. I felt like he was kind of not.
I mean, they went to the playoffs. They went to the divisional round of the playoffs. So I mean, it's all relative, right? Like you look at all these teams that are just running out these terrible quarterbacks, and you're like, he can do better than that. Just he can think his way better than that.
Yeah,
his noodle arm can do better than that. Anyway, it's just funny because Tom Brady is the inverse. He got divorced so we could keep playing football.
Tom's got the TB12 method.
Yeah, and I always thought with Breeze because I was a big fan I've always been a big Drew Brees fan, and there's so much with the Saints of what could have been because of just the things that happened to them in the playoffs. Like obviously the Rams NFC Championship game with that ridiculous call. They beat the Patriots that year. I think the Saints win that game easily. So there's just so much what could have been with Breeze. I mean, Breeze could maybe have 3 titles if a couple things sort of broke differently. So I can imagine with Saints fans that it's been a lot of heartbreak with them. And then you go from Sean Payton to I've never been a big believer in Dennis Allen as a head coach. I don't know what you guys think, but
it's been a questionable season, obviously. But you've seen the team at least they haven't quit on him, that's for sure. And his message isn't or his presence is still commanding in the locker room at least.
Yeah. Well, I like the receiver. Olave looks like he's going to be a player. So.
Yeah, he's been a lot of fun to watch, and probably the brightest spot for New Orleans this year. There is also their second round pick in Alontae Taylor has really performed well. We're just waiting for the other first rounder and Trevor Penning to get back to
might be back this week.
Field action. He's at least back at practice now.
Yeah.
So I have one more question for you, and then I'll let you go. Why does Brandon Aiyuk like spiking the football into people's nuts?
Does he do that? I didn't know that he even did that.
You didn't see that?
I did not see that. No.
Oh my gosh. I'll have to send it to you on Twitter. Yeah. So when he scored the second touchdown, he took the ball and he threw it into the back of the end zone. There's a cameraman standing there just like, doing his job. And all of a sudden just.
Oh, that's funny. I didn't even see that. Yeah, send it to me. I'll retweet that. That's pretty funny.
It's wild. And it's like you could see, like he saw it immediately and it was just like, oh no, what have I done? It was
the nuts.
The Mexico City game was a treat.
He's going to end up with a signed jersey and tickets, some kind of package.
That's funny. I didn't notice that. Usually when something happens, I got to take notes or tweet it, and I put my head down after. So I totally missed the nut spike. But you guys will have to send that to me.
I will. Yeah. No. It's wild. Anyway, that's all I got. Steve, you got anything else?
No, just maybe like who is a guy or two on either the offense or defense that is kind of an underrated stud for you guys, kind of thing that maybe fans don't really like. Saints fans wouldn't know about. But end up causing like to be a big disruption or a big playmaker in the game.
So on offense, again, you have all those guys: Deebo, Aiyuk, Kittle, McCaffrey.
Yeah, the list goes on and on.
On and on. Juwan Jennings is a guy who has a lot of big third down catches for them. And I don't know if you guys watched the Chargers game on Sunday night a couple weeks ago, but he only had 4 catches for 40 yards. It doesn't look huge in the box score, but a couple of those were huge on third down where he ran after the catch. He converted a couple third downs, and they don't win the game without him. And some games he doesn't catch a ball. In some games he has a couple huge catches. So he's somebody to look out for on the offense. Defensively, I mean, it's like pick your poison. The defensive line is fantastic. Charles Omenihu is a guy a lot of people don't know, and I think he's 11th in the league in pressures this year. He's been really good in terms of that. And you probably know about Hufanga on the back end. He's been getting some praise, but he's a guy that makes a lot of plays. The Niners safeties. What was that?
He's got a great name to say.
Great name. And the Niners had Tart and Ward playing safety previously. Ward's playing cornerback now. But they were very solid, but didn't get a lot of turnovers. And Hufanga is a totally different dude. He's already got 4 picks. So he has a lot of game-changing plays, and he's a guy to look out for on defense. He can change the game around in a hurry.
What's been with our LSU guy, Tyrion Davis-Price? What's he up to, man?
The Niners love drafting running backs in like the 3rd round and never playing them. So that's what he's doing right now. He's just the latest running back. They get drafted high and just never play.
Well, like Trey Sermon's on the Eagles right now.
Yeah, they just let's trade up for a running back and then never. Yep. And so was Davis Price. And the guys that are undrafted free agents, your Jeff Wilsons, your Mosterts, your Matt Breidas. Jordan Mason's a guy who dresses now. He doesn't get a ton of carries, but those are the guys that do well. Eli Mitchell was like a 6th round pick. Those are the guys that do well. I have no idea why they spend the capital they do on running backs, but they keep doing it. But maybe now they won't with Mitchell and McCaffrey. Maybe they're finally all set there.
Yeah. They keep drafting all these running backs and then they trade for Christian.
Right. You're like, oh.
The relationship between Shanahan's and running backs is just one of the most fascinating things you'll ever see in NFL history. It's just this wild history of making bad decisions and somehow finding these hidden gems.
Yeah, it's funny because they have a great roster, but some of the things they do with those picks, it's like they pick Price and everybody's just like, yeah, well, okay, he's not going to dress the entire year and he'll be on a different team next year, and it looks that way right now. So I don't know why they keep doing it.
All right. Well, we've been talking with Al Sacco, 49ers Webzone No Huddle podcast. Check it out. Saints-49ers this weekend out in Santa Clara. It's going to be a good time. Thanks so much for hanging around, man.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
And that's going to wrap it up for us here on Inside Black and Gold. Thanks so much, Al Sacco, the Sacco Award, for hanging out with us. I sent him the Brandon Aiyuk clip. Have you seen that clip?
Yeah, it's pretty hilarious. He was just, whizzing it to the back of the end zone. The guy just happened to be in its way.
It's like a heat-seeking missile. I mean, it's fascinating how they just boom. Anyway, hopefully they gave him some like signed memorabilia or something as an I'm sorry for your
here's some
your
tickets for your family
children.
Kind of thing. Yeah. Sorry, you won't be able to have it reproduce anymore.
Yes, exactly. For making you barren. All right.
Here's an Aiyuk signed jersey though.
Yes. Yeah. And a promise that I will never again throw a ball in your direction. All right. But on that note, we're going to wrap this thing up. Thank you so much for listening to Inside Black and Gold. Make sure to hit the subscribe button wherever you get your podcasts. And if you have not yet, why not? Give us a rating, give us a review. We're going to keep these coming at you. Next episode is going to be our post-game edition on Monday morning. Hopefully, it is another post-win edition for the first 2-game winning streak this season. Giddy up.
Can't win 3 unless you win 2.
Can't win 3 unless you win 2. Yes.